How's it going, everyone? This is Zach. Welcome to the channel. I am back with another review for episode 3 of the Witcher series on Netflix. The title of this episode is Betrayer Moon. Now, before I break down the episode and talk about everything that happened, I'm gonna lay out the timeline for everyone real fast. It seemed like in my other videos, people really liked that, as the show doesn't do a good job of explaining the time difference between all the different characters. And also, if you enjoyed this video or it just helps you understand the show better, consider leaving a like. It really helps me. I'm such a small channel. Any likes or comments really help me out. Also, if you're looking for videos that explain the first 2 episodes, I have a video for each one of those. So I have a Witcher playlist, and they're really easy to find if you're interested in those. Alright guys, so getting into the timeline for this episode. It's actually fairly simple in this episode. I'm sure most of you caught this. But Yennefer's story is the furthest in the past, and Geralt's story is once again in the middle, with Ciri being the farthest in the future. And we know this because in Yennefer's story we see a young Foltest and Ada, and they are the main focus of Geralt's storyline, when Foltest is a lot older and he is king and Ada is dead. Another little hint that they dropped that some of you may have missed is when the chapter of mages is all gathered around having their meeting. They mentioned Calanthe, and she is actually young when they were talking about her. So we do know that this is far in the past from where Ciri's storyline is, where Calanthe is a much older woman. Okay, so now we're going to get into the actual story of the episode. So we're going to start with Geralt and then talk about Yennefer, and then finally we will end with Ciri, as her story is very short in this episode. So Geralt's story begins where they show an unknown Witcher. Now, we don't know anything about this guy. We do know he is from the Wolf School of Witchers. Just like Geralt, he has the same wolf medallion, and he's come to hunt what he thinks is, they call it a Vuko Delak. I butchered that name, it's hard to say. And he wants 3,000 orns up front by these group of miners that have raised this money. That is a ton of money. Different monies in the Witcher world have different values, like the last episode when Geralt was paid 150 ducats and Yennefer was bought for 4 marks. They all have different values, but 3,000 orns is as much as it sounds. It's a pretty hefty sum. So we know this monster is going to be strong, and it's very dangerous. So we cut to this Witcher going to hunt this monster in a very dark scene, bloody scene, and he's brutally murdered. It does not show the monster, but we see him get killed before he even has a chance to swing his sword. So the monster is very powerful. I mean, it kills a Witcher before he can even put up a fight. And then we cut straight to Geralt, and he's in a brothel, and he is sleeping with a prostitute, because Geralt once again loves the women. And it's kind of cool to see the prostitute is actually identifying his scars and guessing what monsters did it based on the ballads that Dandelion has sang about. So he's getting famous off of Dandelion's ballads, and Dandelion is getting famous off of his exploits. So being a common thing with Geralt and Dandelion in the books and the games, they don't have a lot of money. They are often broke. And so Geralt does not have enough money to pay his tab at this tavern, but he is told by the prostitute he's sleeping with that another Witcher passed through before him, and he learns of this contract to go kill this monster. He's also told that this Witcher took the miner's money, the 3,000 orns, and just disappeared, that he just ran, which as we know is false. So Geralt heads to Temeria, which is where this monster is, and he talks to these miners. Now we learn from these miners that this monster has been attacking people for years, and that the king, whose name is Foltest, won't do anything about it, which is causing them to get very frustrated, and they are on the verge of revolt because Foltest isn't the one in danger. He's behind the castle walls, but all of the citizens, like the miners who are out in the country, are the ones being killed by this vicious monster, and no one's doing anything to stop it. So Geralt's talking to these miners, and he's apologizing for the former Witcher who they believe ran, and he's also willing to take 1/3 of the payment they paid him, just 1,000 orns. So while he's talking to the miners, a representative from King Foltest comes. His name is Ostrit, and he pretty much tells the miners to drop it, and he tells Geralt he's got to leave Temeria. So something's going on. It's like the king doesn't want this monster dead. So as Geralt is being transported out of Temeria, he's got some guards with him, and they mysteriously get knocked out, and it turns out Triss, a sorcerer, is behind it, and she wants to pay Geralt to save the monster, not kill it. So she takes him to like her lab. We get a bunch of info from her. So this all started 6 years ago, where stable hands were disappearing, and then not long after that, citizens throughout Temeria. So it started close to this palace, and then it started spreading out more across the country. So they eventually realized that this monster, whatever was doing this, was actually coming from the crypt underneath the castle where the dead Queen Ada was. Now Queen Ada is Foltest's sister, just for a reminder. Now before Ada died, she was rumored to be having an affair with someone in the city, but no one really knew who. And many believe that she was also pregnant at the time when she died. Now, if this was the case, if she was pregnant when she died, the baby would have been the heir to the throne because Foltest never married, after she died, so Foltest has no other child. And eventually Foltest actually abandons this entire castle, this entire palace. He just up and leaves it, and he completely ignores the rising death toll around his country. So he moves into a completely different castle, and so there's just an old abandoned castle just sitting there with a monster that is pretty much just having free reign to do whatever it wants. We find out Triss was sent to cure the creature by the Brotherhood of Sorcerers, and she's actually kept the dead Witcher's body, the guy who got killed in the very first scene, and she actually lied to the people so they wouldn't know that this monster actually killed a Witcher. So she kind of tarnished this guy's name and made all these people believe that Witchers were bad, when really she just didn't want them to know how dangerous this monster was. So Geralt kind of does an autopsy on the dead Witcher's body and finds out that the monster is actually a Striga, not what they called it earlier. I'm not even going to try to repeat it. Now Strigas are rare and they are only made through curses. Geralt finds out it's a Striga because it only ate his heart and his liver. So it's a very picky eater. It's common for a Striga to only eat the heart and the liver. And Geralt says it is actually Ada's unborn child, the child she was pregnant with when she died. So Triss and Geralt go talk to Foltest to kind of talk to him about what to do about this monster. And Geralt pretty much straight up accuses him of sleeping with Ada, his own sister. So Geralt accuses him of incest and pretty much tells him, your baby is actually a monster now. Foltest is not having any of it and actually tells Geralt to get out of Temeria for a second time. But of course Geralt's not going to do that, so him and Triss find a way to sneak into the old castle. They want to look for why Ada was cursed and maybe a way to cure it. They actually find a hidden compartment with letters stating that the mother of Ada and Foltest found out about them having a sexual relationship, and she wanted them to stop and even abort the baby that she was pregnant with. Now this leads us to believe that maybe the mother laid the curse, but Geralt actually smelled a scent on Ada's old sheets on her old bed. And as we find out when they go talk to Ostrit about this, Geralt actually finds out it is Ostrit's scent that he smelled on that bed. So Geralt's able to do this because of course he's a Witcher. He's heavily mutated. He has these almost supernatural powers, so he can smell this kind of stuff even if it's so old, even if it's years and years old. So the rumor that was going around about Ada having an affair was actually true. She was sleeping with Ostrit. Now Ostrit does say he actually loved Ada, but when he found out that Foltest and her were sleeping together, he kind of lost it a little. He hated Foltest for it. He believed Foltest was pressuring her and pretty much making her have an affair with him, and that she didn't really want to do it at all. Now Ostrit didn't want to ruin Ada's reputation while she was alive or even after she was dead, so he never told anybody about her affair with Foltest. And he's actually the one who laid the curse. He tried to curse Foltest, but in turn actually cursed Foltest's child that Ada was pregnant with. So Geralt knocks Ostrit out, and we cut to a scene where Triss has convinced Foltest to let Geralt enter the old castle. So Geralt ties up Ostrit to the bed where Ada used to sleep and gets the story out of how Ostrit made the curse. Ostrit said he bathed in lamb's blood until dawn, which gives Geralt the information he needs, and Geralt knows that in order to cure the Striga and not kill it, he has to keep it out of its tomb all the way until dawn when the rooster crows 3 times. So pretty much that means Geralt is in for a fight all night against this pretty powerful monster. So Geralt fights the monster. He tries all kinds of different ways. At first he tries to contain it with the silver chain, but it breaks out of that. And so after a long fight, he ends up blocking the exit with some of his magic, as well as getting in its tomb and sealing it with magic until it's dawn. Now when Geralt comes out of the tomb, he sees a naked girl lying on the floor. He goes over to check on her, but she is still savage, and she gouges out his neck, and the only way he stops her is by biting her neck, which causes her to get off of him. But he is extremely injured because of this and passes out due to blood loss. So he wakes up, he's being treated by Triss. She's treating his neck wound. So Triss explains to Geralt what happened when he passed out. Ostrit actually got credit for slaying this false monster, the Vokodolk, and no one is the wiser that Foltest's daughter was actually the Striga and that she's being treated. And so that ends the story, but let's not forget that Geralt did all of this just to pay a fee that he owed at a tavern. Also, a fun fact about this story real fast is this is the very first story that was in the first book called The Last Wish. So the title of the story is actually called The Witcher. So it's kind of what started it all, and it's just a cool thing to know. Alright guys, so now to talk about Yennefer. The video is already pretty long, so I'm going to try to make this as short as possible. So we start off with Yen and Istredd having sex. They are doing the sex, and it's kind of funny, they have an applauding audience. Now they're not real, they're just a form of magic Yennefer is doing. So we find out that today is the day of their initiation, so they are going to become full-blown sorcerers starting today. Now something that comes along with that, for the females at least, is they get to become however they want to look like. They can be as pretty as they want and get rid of all their imperfections. Also, Yennefer is supposed to be sent to the kingdom of Aedirn. The king specifically likes sorcerers that are from his kingdom. Yennefer is from Vengerberg, which is within his kingdom, so it works out perfectly. And then we cut to the chapter of mages, all of the kind of leaders of the mages, or sorcerers should I say, and they're talking about where to send all the new initiates. The chapter actually goes against what was previously planned, and they vote to send Yennefer to Nilfgaard instead of where she was going to go, using the information that Istredd gave them, that she cannot go where she was planning to go because of her elf blood. Now that wasn't going to be a problem because no one was supposed to know about her elf blood, but Istredd told Stregobor, and Stregobor brings it up in the meeting. They're trying to get Yennefer sent to Nilfgaard, and it's against Yennefer's wishes as well as her rectoress, the teacher who kind of taught her everything. So Yennefer finds out that she's actually going to be sent to Nilfgaard. She's very angry, and she finds out that Istredd is the reason behind it. If he had never told them about her elven blood, this would never be happening. So she confronts him, they get into a huge fight, almost like a breakup, and she misses her entire initiation because of this. So she's not made into a sorcerer, and she is not made pretty. The next scene cuts to the timeline I talked about earlier, where it shows a young Foltest and Ada at this party. So you have all these sorcerers dancing with the kings they are assigned to, and it's just one big party, and we do see a young Foltest messing with his sister in a fond way. The next scene we get is Yennefer is kind of taking matters into her own hands. She goes to the wizard who can change her appearance, and she undergoes this beautification process, which is very painful. They usually put you to sleep during it, but she doesn't have time. She wants to be awake for it. And we also learn that during this process, the sorceresses are made sterile. They take out their uterus. They can no longer have kids. So it's a very painful scene. So she gets rid of all her deformities, her hunchback and her crooked jaw, and she comes out flawless. She comes out to the party. She's all made up. She has a black dress on, black long hair, and this ties into what the rectoress, her mentor, told her earlier. When she was unsure of what she wanted to look like, she was told to imagine the most powerful woman in the world, and that's who she should model herself after. So in Yennefer's mind, the way she looks when she comes out in all black is what she envisions as the most powerful woman in the world. She walks right up to the king of Aedirn, which was who she was assigned to originally, and pretty much forces his hand. He obviously wants her. She says Yennefer of Vengerberg. He knows that's in his kingdom, and he wants her. So she breaks all these rules, and no one is happy with her. And the episode ends with her dancing with this king. And alright guys, finally we are going to talk about Ciri. It's very short. So Ciri wakes up. She's in a clearing, and she's heading toward another forest. She seems to be being drawn there by some unknown force. And her elf friend wakes up, and he seems to know something is wrong. So he's chasing after her. He's yelling for her to stop, and an arrow comes out of nowhere and goes right by him. So he does falter for a minute, but for whatever reason, he does not stop. He continues going after Ciri, who is totally oblivious to him. She's walking straight toward this forest like she's in a trance, and he is actually hit by an arrow, and we are assuming he is dead as of now, because if you look around the field, there's a bunch of skeletons. I don't think he's going to get out of it alive. And then at the very end, we actually see that she is hearing these voices saying her name and drawing her toward this forest. So that actually wraps up the episode. My thoughts on the episode are that it is very good. I think it's my favorite so far. I would give this one an 8 out of 10. I think it edges out the first two just with the fight with the Striga alone was amazing. And Yennefer's storyline was also very good in this as well. The short story that they derived Geralt scenes from is actually one of my favorite short stories out of all of them I've read. And it's the one that starts it all off, called The Witcher. I feel like they did a pretty good job interpreting it, although they did change a lot. So once again, if you are interested and you actually like this show, I would definitely recommend reading the books. The stories are pretty amazing. And once again, guys, I mentioned it in the beginning, but if you enjoyed this and it helped you understand the episode better, leave a like, leave a comment. It will really help the video get more views, and it'll help my channel grow. So I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Count on me making a video for the rest of the episodes, and I'll see you all in the next video.